This is a slip ring we use inside Whirl-E-Bird, and what's cool about it is it passes 2 different power circuits and a single ground circuit through the Whirl-E-Bird. This output side spins, it's almost like a collector on an aerial device where it can just spin infinitely. What's cool about it is this thing comes to us fully assembled and tested, so we're not having to align parts when we're assembling the Whirl-E-Bird. This is a complete sub-assembly unit that's tested, certified, and ready for 15 million revolutions on the front of your fire truck. Whirl-E-Bird uses a pretty modern style powertrain. This is a brushless DC servo motor. And the way it works is it's actually a motor assembly here, and then this is a planetary gear set, and this is the output shaft. A couple things that are interesting is that this shaft is supported on both ends. This actually goes into a bearing inside the housing. And when the motor assembly gets installed in the main mounting apparatus here, then this mates to the front face of the Whirl-E-Bird, which I don't have sitting in front of me, but it basically means that when the motor torques up, which it does through this external control board, it will ramp up the speed, but that torque is passed evenly through the gears. So it's not pushing the gears apart. The gears are supported because this end is supported and this end is supported. So the entire assembly is balanced, and you don't end up having sideways loading on the output shaft, which will make this thing last a very long time. The motor is actually using AC, 3-phase AC power to drive 3 different sets of windings on the motor, and then we can step it very efficiently forwards and backwards at whatever speed and intensity we want. The way we do that is through this motor driver that we build here at HiViz. This thing basically controls each of the output sections of the motor independently, changes the windings and the speed so that then when you power up the Whirl-E-Bird, it slowly ramps up to its max output and slowly ramps back down, and it allows you to have dual directional control. If you want to run forwards, you want to run backwards, this thing handles all of that. The way the motor assembly goes together is the motor has an output shaft that goes into this flange, and when you look in this flange, there's a bearing that gets pressed down in there. And so one of the key concepts of a robust design in this particular area is that the shafts have to be supported on both ends, both the motor side and the other side that touches the fixture. And so then the other gear, when we install it, will sit here and interface with this gear. But what's important is that this is not just floating on the other side. So by supporting it on both ends, what you prevent is when gears mesh together and you apply torque, they want to push apart. And so by supporting it on both ends, all of that energy is converted into rotational energy, and it goes through the gears cleanly without bending the output shafts. That helps us make sure that this motor assembly, which is motor, planetary gear set, and output shaft, don't experience torque or forces which are not really intended for this type of assembly, and it's going to make sure it lasts a really long time. This is a stainless steel gear that gets used in the Whirl-E-Bird. This thing is massive. It's almost a ½ inch thick, and obviously you can see the diameter here. The way this thing works is this is the primary output shaft assembly where the motor drives this gear. This is the driven gear, then there's a drive gear under here, and then the Whirl-E-Bird front piece actually attaches here on the front end. It's a very large output shaft, and it's got 2 bearings, one on each end. If you look here, this is the build instruction. The way it works is there's actually a bearing on one side of the shaft, then there's a spacer, then there's a gear, then there's another bearing. And just like the motor output shaft that's supported on both ends, this is also supported on both ends with 2 different bearings on either side of the gear assembly so that we transfer torque cleanly to the gear. If you've never seen this sort of process before, the way it works is the shaft gets set into this piece here, then you set the bearing on the top, and you use this thing. This is called a drift. You set it on top of the shaft, and then you press the bearing down onto the shaft, and then it's called an arbor press, but you use it to press it down there. Once it's been pressed in place, you pull the assembly off, and then you finish assembling it where you add the gear on one side, and then a spacer, and then another bearing, and eventually it looks like this. This is the motor driver, and this is how we control the brushless DC servo motor that's the power plant of the Whirl-E-Bird. This is actually a pretty cool piece of circuitry. We have Slick the dog, the memorialized best friend of mine who is helping power this thing. And then we have a couple different things, 2 different microcontrollers. One's a motor driver, one's actually got the firmware that we've written on here. What's cool is we can then change the speed based on this input jumper. You'll see this in our service manual where when you set it all the way to the left, it's the slowest speed, and then you can incrementally step it up to 5 different speeds all the way to the right, which is super psycho mode. Another cool thing is that we're able to change, over here we have something called a rectifier bridge, and what that lets us do is regardless of the polarity you put on the input, the board still delivers the same clean DC power to the driver circuitry and all the stuff that we're running on the inside. But by changing from one polarity to the other, we sense it differently on the input side, and then we tell the microcontroller, hey, you're enabled to spin backwards or you're enabled to spin forwards. It gives you the ultimate flexibility with a single part number internally to have forward control, backward control, in any of 5 speeds. This is the Whirl-E-Bird housing, and the way this thing works is the housing will ship completely sealed. So if this is the assembly here, this is all assembled with the Whirl-E-Bird facing on the front side. The way you install it is you mount this flange on the truck, and then you take the Whirl-E-Bird and you attach it to the flange, and you tighten these set screws, and Bob's your uncle. It's super simple. This is designed so that you don't have to disassemble the Whirl-E-Bird and stick all the components and parts inside and hope that they seal. All of the sealing, gasket interfaces, and testing are done here at HiViz. And then when it shows up at your place, all you're doing is installing the flange on the truck and then the Whirl-E-Bird on the flange and then setting the set screws, and it's done.